I'm just checking to see if it works, if it's, on, if the camera is on. Just double checking. Alright. It appears to be on. Alright then. It's on. Hello everybody. Welcome to today's video. And as you can see, I'm recording myself here. Well, I'm going to be talking about the 2120 pandemic. Why do I like talking about it so much? What's this have to do with anything? What does the 2120 pandemic have to do with anything? Well, I'll tell you this. The 2120 pandemic will be a major pandemic. Okay? It might not be big as, it was historically. But the 2120 pandemic will be a serious one for the ages. And it's not if this pandemic will happen, but it's when. And it will happen in that year. I don't know when during that year. I have no idea when it will happen during that year. But I know it will happen during that year. I don't know if it's going to happen in, say, March, for example, or July, or August, or even December, or not really at all much. Or who knows, it could happen, January 1st of 2020, but not 2020, 2120, excuse me. But that means if YouTube is still around by this time, which, it's possible, and that's if this account doesn't get taken down, and that's if this account is still around, even if it's a dead account. If this video that this account is uploaded to is still around, then that means there's a chance that you were watching this during the time that I am referring to, or maybe later, but you can prove me if I'm wrong in the future. Now, I might sound like some sort of time traveler. Diseases really do affect the world. But, they never saw it coming. They never saw it coming. I know they never saw it coming. But I did. They thought, oh, it's going to be weak. We're going to be pre-prepared for it. We're going to be ready for that pandemic. No, the fuck you're not. You might think, oh yeah, we're going to be prepared for this pandemic. This pandemic that's going to be coming after us. No, you're not. But you're going to be prepared in the sense that you'll know that it happens, or, well, you probably knew that it happened, because for you it's probably in past tense. It's a was, that, and is, where it's just a part of history. But I have the feeling the last major pandemic will happen in 3120, at least of worldwide pandemics. So yeah. But in terms of how many pandemics there will be throughout history, that's an unknown number. But if you're talking in purely like big pandemic worldwide numbers, yeah. The last major, worldwide pandemic, at least for Earth anyway, will probably be like a year like 3120. I could be wrong about that. I could be deeply wrong about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, be like somebody who's out there with this pandemic. I'm trying to help you. Well, there's still time prior to it. But if you're past it anyways, regardless, well, there's nothing I can do about that. I can try and say, hey, this pandemic is going to happen at this particular year, and your relatives or your great relatives, whoever your offspring of your offspring is, whoever their kids are, or whoever their kids' are. Okay, let's put it in a more basic way. So about 6 or so generations from now. Not 6. Yeah, about 6 or 7, people take time for granted in my time period because, well, and you might be doing it too, throughout history, people didn't take time for granted because either they didn't really care too much about it, as in, you were young as you were young, or you were old as you were old, or if they did care about it, it was either for religious reasons, or it was just because, people wanted to just know what the time was, but they never really knew, What if our calendar is wrong? Actually wrong. What if our, second is not the actual true second? What if our minutes are not the actual real minutes? What if our hours are not the real hours? What if the days are not the real days? What if the weeks are not real weeks? What are the years are not real years, months, or years, What if they're not real decades, centuries, thousands of years? What if it's all just made up numbers? Well, it is, kind of. But, you know what I mean? I mean, people don't realize how much lore it took just for people to get standardized time like this. You're seeing this video, and you can see the length of time this is. Every single little is something ticking. Something ticking. And that ticking is a little in-between space. There's little in-between space, those two ticks. And humans tend to live in between minutes, seconds, and nanoseconds. Okay? We live in nanoseconds, and we live in between seconds, and we live in between minutes. It's just how humans are. We are naturally that way. And those minutes tend to turn into hours. Hours turn into days. Weeks turns into months. Months turns into years. Years turns into decades. And decades turns into centuries. There's 60 seconds in a minute. I don't know how many nanoseconds there are, but there's 60 seconds in a minute. Time of recording, there's 60 seconds in a minute. There's 60 minutes in an hour. There's 24 hours in a day. There's 7 days in a week. There is about, depending on the month, usually it's somewhere between 30 to 31 days a month, and again, depending on if you're in a leap year or not, for specifically February, it's either 28 days or 29 days. And, yeah, that's how that works. And there's about 365 days for average year, and there's 366 years, not years, 366 days, in the calendar, and that's about 52 weeks. 52 weeks, that kind of thing. Oh, see you 52 weeks from now. That's a year, bro. That's a fucking year. Quite a lot of time you can do in a year. Hell, there's quite a lot of time there's quite a lot of things you can do in just a minute or just a few seconds, That kind of thing. There's so much you can do. And this pandemic is one of those things. And you might be asking, well, what does all this time stuff have to do with the pandemic? What does all of that have to do with this pandemic you are referring to? Good question. That is also a factor, because time is also one of those things where, just as, the pandemic of my era, 2020, the big one, that pandemic had a beginning, had a middle, had an end. So will this pandemic. It will have a beginning. It will start with its origins. It will be like a 10 to 20, 10 year, beef up. And then the 2120 will come around. And by that time, we will be in a pandemic. And in this pandemic, by that time, we will start to get into the middle. And you'll be the longest part is the middle. The shortest part is the end. The second longest part is the beginning. That's the second longest part. That's what leads up to it. And it may even happen within that year. Hell, it may even happen within most of that year. But once that pandemic hits, probably right around, I don't know. If you want to have a specific date, no. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching this in the future, far into the future from now. But I'm gonna say maybe... maybe May 8th? I don't know. But again, I could be wrong about this. I could be deeply wrong about this. May 8th of 2120. And that's if you're still using the Gregorian calendar and the specific way that the Gregorian calendar is being used. And it's very important to me that I inform people years and years and years and years and years and years before it happens, because if you tell these people about this pandemic only as the pandemic is going on or as it's starting to go on, it's going to be very hard for a lot of people, and it will be, and that's how it is for a lot of people. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can be pre-informed so that way when it does happen, not in my time, but time of recording, in my place. But when it happens in your time, or if it's already happened, you would know why I'm warning people about it. Why I'm telling people 94 years ago, 95 years ago, hey, You got a pandemic to deal with. I can't. I would say, it's crazy, man, you know? That you have a major problem. The world has a major problem. You know? I don't know if this video will survive. It probably won't. You know? I'm very young, you know, all the way back then. But, you know, if I am alive by that time, I'll be very, very old. You know? I would be very old. But it's no guarantee if I'll be alive. It's no guarantee that the people that comment on this video will be alive. You know? Not a guarantee. But even if that is the case, you also have to understand that this is of my time. This is of my era, so to speak. So whatever I just said in this video might seem very, well, of its time. And you might think that we're super, super different, which we are, but we're just similar enough that you're probably watching this video. You know? We're just similar enough that you can understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm not sure. Maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. You know? But like, I think warning people about this disease can actually make the pandemic shorter, or at least when it does end, make it less worse than it needs to be. If that means a bunch of people die, then yeah, that's unfortunate. But if that means that, you know, we'll have to realize the consequences of that and, you know, be able to fix society because of that pandemic, like it gets people to just wake up and just, you know, improve our society to make sure that never happens again, and actually do it that time, and not just say it or just, oh, we're going to prepare for this, and then all of a sudden big pandemic comes through, you know? Like, I don't think you understand. 2020, it changed a lot for 21st century history. Like, there's the pre-pandemic era, and there's the post-pandemic era, and there is the pandemic era. But the pandemic era, the 2020 pandemic era, was mostly to that specific year. And, at least worldwide. Whereas for, you know, pre-pandemic era really just means like, I want to say 2016, 2018, or 19, depending on who you ask, or even 20, but it's whatever, you know? But yeah, time of recording, we're still in the post-pandemic era. You know? I am, anyway. I am in a time, for the first couple of years, from about 2021, 2022, people became very, very chronically online, especially in 2022. Like, it was getting bigger and bigger, and it went on hyperspeed because of 2020, but I would say 2022 was the absolute hype maximum of this peak, you know? and it started to go downward in 2023, and then it upticked in 2024, and then in 2025 it got slightly lower, not by much, but slightly lower, and in 2026 it's slightly lower, you know, so far, but it's not a guarantee what this year became, or how you interpret this year, or how you interpret me, who's making this video, who's releasing it to the internet. I don't know how you interpret pandemics, or what, if that's even a word in your vocabulary, you know? But, hey, I'm telling you this right now. At least you know somebody in the past was like, there's gonna be a pandemic. It's going to happen. It's not a prediction. It's not a watch. It's a warning. You know? In weather terms. Basically, in 2026 weather terms, a watch, if we're on a weather watch, or if it says rain watch, or cold watch, or winter watch, or whatever, that means there's the potential to have, you know, this or that, to have weather going on. But a weather warning, a tornado warning, a snow warning, that means it either will happen, it's currently happening, or it has been currently happening, you know? Like, it's still going on. That kind of thing. That's what it means. And this is not a watch. Me warning you about the pandemic is not a watch. It's a warning. It's self-explanatory. But I'm still explaining it because, well, some people still need to learn that. And the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of folks who will be in denial. There are a lot of folks who would just absolutely say, hey, there's going to be no pandemic. We'll survive. I don't know about you specifically, but there will be a pandemic. And yes, maybe we will survive, most likely, given, you know, being realistic. If you want to be realistic. But if you're talking about in terms of, like, that there's going to be a pandemic, it's going to be really bad, yeah, that will happen. If you're denying that will happen, you're kind of the not good person, okay? Or not necessarily not good person, but not good way of thinking is what I meant to say. Anyway, this pandemic really does weigh a lot on me, and I like to think about it and talk about it because I just know in the future that somebody might need, you know, information. I would say study up and learn your history on 2020, you know, so that way you can learn about what 2000, that way whatever you got from 2120 gets good. But I'm not dead. I'm not dead time of recording, but regardless if I am or I'm not, I really hope that you watching this video, if you're alive during that time, get through the pandemic, or at least just if you're past it, appreciate it, you know, appreciate this inevitability or whatever. But anyway, I'm gonna end this video, I guess. Any thoughts or ideas or opinions you may have on this, that is up to you. So, yeah. That's it. Bye.